Alright, peace and greetings, YouTubers. So, can we jump into the Tinashe debacle? Now, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about the whole element that she was talking about when it comes to colorism and being biracial and stuff, because in my opinion, that has absolutely nothing to do with why she's currently not successful. And honestly, I also think that that quote was kind of taken out of context a bit, and so, because the narrative was pushed that, Tinashe said, she's mixed, she's biracial, black people ain't supporting her music, blah, 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 everything like that. And I didn't really get that same context when I read the article. To me, it kind of came off as her just talking about her life in general, and okay, the experience of being biracial or being mixed and trying to find the lane of where you fit in when it comes to the realm of blackness. I saw that part, which in general is a very valid and a very true experience for people who are biracial or people who are mixed ethnicity, where one of those ethnicities has something to do with anything of African descent. That's the experience of many. I can't take away her experience as a biracial person and give my whole 2 cents on it because I'm not biracial. The only thing that I can almost maybe equate that experience to would be being a black American trying to get closer to my African roots, and then on occasion you're going to run into some people who are from the continent of Africa or who are African immigrants living in the United States who are like, you ain't one of us, blah, blah, blah. That's the closest I can get to it, but it literally has nothing to do with why she is not really catching on. But if you are really intrigued and you would like to know my 2 cents on the experience of people when it comes to race, ethnicity, nationality, people who are biracial, all that kind of stuff, you can check out my video I did on Bow Wow. It's called Dear Shad Moss, aka Bow Wow, You're Black. This is when he was talking about he's not black, he's mixed, and we got that right together, so that's a good one. You can check out the video I did on the Light Girls documentary. You can check out any video I've done where it talks about the cultural divide that exists within the diaspora, meaning people who are black, people who are from Africa, people who are from the Caribbean, people who are Afro-Latino, and just the cultural divides that we have and that exist. All of those videos talk about race and ethnicity and nationality and everything like that from a structural standpoint. We'll address anything Tinashe said or allegedly said or anything like that. But let me get into why I think Tinashe has not really caught on. And again, this has nothing to do with her being biracial, because if that was the case, Mariah Carey would have never caught on, because Mariah Carey is biracial and she's like, what, the best-selling female artist of all time? Well, some Madonna fans may disagree and they go back and forth over who sold more, but yeah, Mariah Carey, Alicia Keys has like 1.5 million Grammys, and then if you want to talk about specifically R&B, Keisha Cole was half white. Keisha Cole's all, and when Keisha Cole was Keisha Cole, she was selling. But going back to my main point, hold on, is my screen? Oh, okay. I thought my screen was acting crazy on the camera. I was like, hell no, I just spent $600 on this crap. Okay, so here are the reasons why I think Tinashe has not really caught on. One, Tinashe comes from an era that I come from, meaning you're born in the late 80s or the early 90s, and so you're old enough, but still young, to remember the era of the giant superstar. Superstar meaning the Michael Jacksons, the Janets, the Whitney, the Mariah, the Madonnas, the Boyz II Men, the TLCs, the Spice Girls. I mean, you were old enough to remember an era where there were just all these acts who were coming out and selling millions upon millions upon millions upon millions of records like nobody's business. They could burp in the mic and it was just a hit. And not only that, they were everywhere. I mean, they were on your kid's lunchbox. Everybody had a poster of them. They were on your favorite TV show. It was to the point where, when they were premiering music videos, it wasn't even just air on MTV, but it would air on the major networks. So like, I remember like Fox always would premiere a Michael Jackson video. When Black or White came, it came on. I swear, the Black or White video premiered right after an episode of The Simpsons, if I can remember. Like, The Simpsons were on, and then Black or White came. If not, it might have been a different episode or a different show, but I remember Black or White premiered. This is just an era where artists were so huge. They were selling out stadiums. I mean, it was just a given. You just did a stadium tour. It wasn't even a thing. It was just the norm. And even if you weren't getting the hits that you were getting, maybe your singles were only peaking at like number 38 on the Hot 100, you were still going platinum. You were still selling a lot of records because the industry was just a good time. And so Tinashe comes from that era, and that's the introduction that she has into music, and that's the kind of career that she will aspire to have. But unfortunately, in my opinion, the era of the superstar has died. That window has officially closed, and there is no opportunity for any up-and-coming artist to come out with that same success due to the structural change and the shift of how the industry is currently run. Like, I think the last group of entertainers who would even get the benefit of having, that kind of success, that window closed. That was the Beyoncés. Like, honestly, like, here's the thing, okay, when you talk about the superstars of the past, that's like Michael, Janet, Whitney, Mariah, Prince. that is like that crew. They all get to sit at the table. This new era, they can't sit at the same table because it's a different industry, but they can go to the house across the street and start their own table of like legends in the future. Like, you know, fast forward like 30 years from now, I think that table would be like a Beyonce, Adele, Taylor Swift, Bruno Mars, if he can hang in there, might be at that table. A few other people. And you know, like, it is what it is. But so like, and the reason why those artists are all pretty, you know, successful is, one, they came out before 2008. They were still already established. Somebody like Beyonce's been in the game since like 98. Adele came out when I was a freshman in college. No, she came out when I was a sophomore in college. She came out in like 08, 07, something like that. Whenever 19 came out. Taylor Swift had been out since like 08. Bruno Mars had been out since like 06. And so, you know, they were out early enough before the long-term changes and effects of the digital era kicked in. And so they are artists that benefit from getting label support. And I mean major label support, where the label is spending just money out the ass to keep them relevant. Oh, Rihanna goes in that group as well. People may not agree because of the question of talent, but hell, Rihanna's broken a lot of records. She can sit at the table too. But at the house across the street, not the table with Michael and Janet and them, but the one across the street. Anyway, so that's one. So that window has closed. New artists who are coming out are never going to get the same kind of support Beyonce got for the Lemonade project. That's unheard of. It's never going to happen for any new artist. It's just, Beyonce is the say-all, be-all at the label that she's at. On top of that, Beyonce has proven that she can bring back the return for the investments that are made in her. Same thing for Rihanna, depending on who you ask. Same thing for Bruno Mars. Same thing for Taylor. Same thing for Adele. You know, these are artists that are just say-all, be-all. Okay? The next thing is label support. Again, the record labels don't have the same money and cash flow generating that they once had in the 90s. Why? Because, one, the industry decided to shift. Album sales are no longer relevant because people aren't buying albums. People barely purchase albums digitally, and now everything is going to streaming. So there's even less money to go around. But if you go back to the 90s and the early 2000s, labels were making hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars off of a few acts. Like, if you go to LaFace Records and you just pull 2 acts, Tony Braxton, TLC, and 4 albums, the Tony Braxton album, the Secrets album, the Ooh on the TLC Tip album, and the Crazy Sexy Cool album, between just those 2 albums alone, that generated almost close to $200 million. Just from those 4 albums, just from revenue, album sales, the sales of the singles, everything like that. That $200 million was enough to fund other projects on the label. So somebody like Usher, who was already up and coming, he was on the Poetic Justice soundtrack, but nobody really cared. He came out with the album, nobody cared. But by the time you got to about 97, and it was time to, and 98, and they pushed the My Way album, I can guarantee you some of the money that went to really pushing Usher to make him, you know, the Usher that would later come out with 8701 and Confession, some of that money is probably some of that same money that was generated from the TLC and the Tony Braxton projects. Like Richard Branson, the guy who's over Virgin, he, you know, like Virgin Airlines, the CEO, and at the time when Virgin Records was still in existence, he's basically said that basically the revenue generated from Janet Jackson's Janet album was enough for him to buy himself a private island. So think of all the millions that come. This is when you're selling 15 or 16 million copies of an album on top of the 7, 8, sometimes another 10 or 11, 12 million copies of the singles that you were selling if they were that massive. All right, and that's after the money's already been divided. The label got this piece, the artist got this piece, the songwriters got this piece, the producers got this piece. Some of this went to the masters, some of this went to the publishing, like the distribution. After all of that, that man could buy himself an island. And then it's funny because this is the same guy, like that Atlantis Cove little Bahamas retreat place over in the Caribbean. That's all him. He was like, hell, that's still leftover money from Janet. That's why he was like, Janet, come to the opening. You come do Rhythm Nation at the opening of this place, please. I know you ain't touring around, but we need you. Like, that's how much money that was being generated. And so because the labels had that much money, they could throw support into these labels. Like, you look at TLC, the label gave them 3 chances for the Creep video. The first video didn't come out how they wanted it to look. They got another video director. They shot a second video. It still wasn't right. They got in a third video, increased the budget, and they're like, okay, this is what we want. And it was like labels had money to just throw away because they knew that they would get the investment back from the album sales. And so that doesn't happen anymore today. You know, nobody's selling. And so that goes into the next point I had about Tinashe. Tinashe is on RCA. It's too big of a label. RCA has over 130 acts signed. 130 acts signed, ain't none of them selling, to be honest, but like over 130 acts signed. You did Britney Spears is still on RCA, Christina Aguilera's on RCA. Basically, RCA at this point is a combination of a bunch of other record labels that folded. So like when Jive folded, and if you remember back in the day, Jive was like Britney, Christina, NSYNC. No, Christina was already on RCA. Britney, NSYNC, I think Backstreet Boys, R. Kelly, Chris Brown, like all of them were on Jive. And so when Jive folded and folded into RCA. They all just went to RCA. And same thing with like Epic Records. People who were on like J Records and some of the other ones, they went to Epic. And so literally there's like 3 record labels out right now that call the shots. But if you're on a label that has 135 acts, you're not going to get a lot of support because the label is trying to stretch the money to market everyone. So everybody's getting half-ass marketing minus 5 or 6 major acts. And it is what it is. So because you're on a label that is so big, you're not going to get the push that you need. Because honestly, if Tinashe just gets the right push, she can be successful, but there's not a lot of push for her at the moment. Yes, putting out music videos is one element, which I'm going to get into, but at the moment, there's nothing that's like spoon feeding her to the masses. Like, because literally, labels have made a whole bunch of people happen that really nobody was checking for, but the labels just had these kind of magical powers to make people like certain artists. And then the whole A&R and the imaging. A&R doesn't really exist anymore. If you don't know what that is, that's just artist and repertoire. That's when the talent scouts go and find somebody, they sign them to the label, and then A&R takes that artist under their wing. They're going to mold this artist, they're going to give them an image, they're going to find how they should look, figure out what their sound is, figure out, who they're going to do interviews with, what, maybe we'll put them on a feature or two. Like they did this with Mary J. Blige. So Mary J. Blige got signed. The first time you saw Mary J. Blige was not What's the 411. You saw her in the Father MC video. So like the If You Do For Me, I will do, like Mary J's in that singing backup, and she was singing backup on a lot of Father MC songs. And so stuff like that gets your voice, her voice, more recognizable to people. So by the time she drops What's the 411 and Real Love and everything like that, people are like, oh, that's that one girl, okay, ow. So that was the way it kind of was. I also low-key think, when you want to talk about like somebody like Beyonce, I low-key think that because they always overdubbed her vocals over the other girls on the Destiny's Child tracks, a lot of the songs, something like a Bootylicious, sounds like a straight Beyonce song. So by the time Beyonce actually came out with her stuff, you were already used to that sound of Beyonce to your ears, so it was easy to just jump right into the next ship. Don't fight me on that, Beyonce. That's no diss to anybody, because Beyonce fans, y'all be doing the most sometimes. So the imaging is not there. So when you're talking about Tinashe, Tinashe basically reminds me of every other R&B girl that's out right now. There's a million Aaliyah clones walking around, like a million carbon copies of Aaliyah. Everybody's trying to do this whole Aaliyah thing. And I don't think Tinashe is necessarily trying to bite Aaliyah, but just the whole girl next door, cool tomboy, she can kick it with the fellas, but she's still sexy enough to keep the fellas turned on type of vibe. Every girl out there is doing that. 7th Street has that same image, and I think 7th Street is a great artist as well. But long story short, there's a lot of, and then the Kalani girl, there's a lot of R&B girls that all kind of have the same image. So there's nothing that's really separating them. Now, Tinashe has the support or the advantage of being a little bit more pop than the others, but again, the imaging, because A&R no longer exists, they don't know what to do with Tinashe. When she first came out, they were like, she's the savior of R&B. They were pushing her, boom, boom, boom. I checked out the album, I was like, okay, she's doing like the alternative R&B thing, cool. And then other songs started dropping. I'm like, okay, well, this one's a little bit more pop. Okay, well, this is it. Oh, she's working with Britney, huh? Okay, all right. So, her image was never solidified enough for her fan base or for her to really grow and keep a strong foundation with her fan base. What else? And mind you, I'm not dissing Tinashe. I think she's talented because she has talent. She can sing, she can dance, she writes. I think she wrote Fifth Harmony's That's My Girl. She knows how to produce. She knows how to use Pro Tools, so she knows how this stuff works. She's not untalented. Another major thing is the death of the music video. The music videos no longer carry impact because one, MTV, BET, VH1 no longer play videos, so videos are not as readily available to the masses. The masses have to actually go and search for these videos. So YouTube is great because you can go and you can watch a video anytime you want. However, if you don't know that artist exists, if you don't know that artist has a song out, you're not going to know to go search that video. And so even though there's some artists who have like 800 million views of a video, that's because their fans are 13 and 15. But for people who have careers, people who are in their 30s, people who are in their later 20s, people who are older, they're not going to know that Tinashe had a song called, I think she had a song called Faded or something like that. They're not going to know that that exists because one, it's just not there. You have to think about the times where you might have just been laying and flipping channels and you just happened to go past MTV and you saw a weird video and you actually stopped it and watched the whole thing. Those days don't exist anymore because MTV doesn't play videos. They've discovered that, hey, we make a whole lot more money and get higher ratings with all these reality shows than we do playing music videos. And so the era of the music video has died. Music videos still make an impact for stans and diehard fans and people probably under 17. But most adults, especially I can attest to this, there's a lot of artists who have songs out and I didn't even know they had a video for it. Back then, when you had a video, everybody knew about it. It was here, it was there, it was, MTV was playing it, was this, that, and the third. Videos are so common now that it's not a thing for them to even come out. back in the day, if you had a really big album, you might have only had 4 singles for it, and you might have done 4 videos, and those 4 videos spread out over 2 years. So there was anticipation. Now, like some people like Tinashe or Chris Brown or some of the other people, they're coming out with a new music video every 2-3 months. So the anticipation kind of dies a little bit. And then the last thing, because this video is getting too long, is the industry is oversaturated. And it's oversaturated with a lot of people who are now indie and unsigned. Because of the internet, because we have the option to create our own stuff, everybody's making their own albums now. You have all of these people who make really great music that are just kind of hidden in the trenches of the internet. And so because music is more readily available for people and more accessible, people aren't flocking to the ideal superstar, because now the industry has shifted where there's not going to be a whole lot of artists who have, you know, that are to say I'll be all and they're selling out stadiums this and the third, because there's so many artists to choose from, and people have their own favorites. People have you know, their little favorite people that they discovered on Tumblr or SoundCloud and everything like that. And so, you know, Tinashe is going to have to compete with I don't know, I'm going to just make up somebody, with Chocolate Star, who has a big internet following and everybody's checking for them, or maybe they popped off from YouTube and now they have a big audience. So it's like, there's a bunch of reasons why she hasn't caught on. I also just think she needs better music, in my opinion. But, you know, it is what it is. So Tinashe's issue isn't, it shouldn't have to deal with her being biracial, because that's not a valid viewpoint. But I honestly don't think that's what she was trying to say. I just think Tinashe, one, she needs to find a smaller label that actually has the funds to push her, because RCA is a terrible label to be on if you're an urban artist. And I don't like to use the word urban, but that's what they call it. It's a terrible label to be on, because they're not, R&B is not the move right now in the industry, unfortunately. And so they're not putting the money to support. Like, the reason Beyonce is because she has the right people behind her, and now that she's, you know, she's returned so much revenue has been generated off of her name, the labels will do any and everything for her, you know. And so again, she comes from an era where that door has closed. Tinashe doesn't get that access, you know, and it is what it is. And then on top of that, everybody's not always going to be the artist that's going to be successful. Some people have to be the Shantae Moore, and that's no diss to Shantae, because she's very talented. But hey, when she came out, Mariah was already out. They could both whistle, but Mariah was already out, had better label marketing. She was the bigger star. Okay, somebody has to be a Layla Hathaway. And as legendary as she is, and as much great as her voice was, she never really quite sold the records that she should have sold. And so Tinashe, my advice to her is, you just continue to do your music, and you continue to tour and make a name for yourself, and just make sure that you polish your brand and polish what it is that you have, so that people will continue to follow and support you in the long run. And who knows, it may pay off. You know, like I look at somebody like Sierra. Sierra is consistent. Because, I mean, nobody's really supported her since about 2008, but she continues to put out stuff, and she continues to try. You know, y'all might not support it, but she is doing what it is she can do. And that's literally just how the industry is going to have to be. This is a new industry where being signed to a major record label is no longer a guarantee for you to be successful. And the question and the definition of what success in the music industry is something totally different now. So my advice to new artists who come out, just understand, you can still be very successful. Like, I look at Janelle Monáe. One single of hers has charted, which was Yoga. As great as she is, for all the acclaim that she gets for the smaller venues that she sells out, she's never really had hits. But she knows what her lane is, she knows her audience, and that's what she works. And so Tinashe might have to do that. And, you know, it is what it is. But I could be wrong. Maybe she just needs a different label. Maybe they'll push her. But it's a new day, it's a new industry, it is what it is. Anyway, I'm out. Subscribe.